In this presentation, we're going to explore some of the EC2 gotchas. Some of the beginner mistakes are losing your keys. Make sure that that PEM file you downloaded stays with you, and make sure that you copy it on a USB and store it somewhere secure. Changing the default security group. The default security group is 0 access. Try to keep it that way. When you launch a server, you want to create an SSH port 22, a web port 80, SSL port 443, and so on, and add those to your instance. Launch your instance into the default, which is 0 access, and that ensures the highest security for it. Relying on public and private DNS is a bad idea. These will change on every instance reboot, and you're going to have a tough time logging into your machine if you try to use these over and over. Try to use elastic IPs instead. Also recommended that you leverage the correct shutdown behavior, which is stop or terminate, as well as termination protection. If you enable termination protection, you're keeping your instance from being terminated ever. This may be a good idea in production machines. Advanced users make mistakes too. Let's look at some of those. The first one is not cleaning up your instances. Make sure that you tag your resources. At the very least, make sure that every EC2 instance has a name associated with it so that you know what is where. I've heard from at least one client who had a consultant come in and spin up hundreds of instances inside their Amazon account. The consultant didn't tag any of these instances, and it was very difficult for them to tell what existed where. Make sure that you at the very least give your server a name when you spin it up. Also make sure that you check your AMI and snapshot usage in S3. These machines will build up, and these images are going to cost you money month after month. Copying your credentials into the instances or AMIs is a bad practice. Try to avoid it. Instead, try to leverage IAM EC2 roles or leverage user data when you spin the server up. Debugging a cloud server, believe it or not, is actually a bad idea as well. I never spend more than 5 minutes debugging a server because I know that this is disposable infrastructure. I should have my machine set up so that I can instantly delete one and bring it back up. Machines are going to crash faster in Amazon. This is almost a guarantee. But when you have a machine crash, you never want to spend more than 5 minutes debugging it. Rebuilding the wheel is also a bad idea. Try to leverage AMIs or the AWS Marketplace at this URL. Here you can see that companies like Tengen and Bitnami offer AMIs for things like MongoDB and Ruby. Rather than building your own, you may want to start with one of these. Also, leveraging CloudFormation templates help you spin up an entire stack. This is actually what we do at the very end of this course. Using EC2 when a service exists is also an anti-pattern. The service is almost always likely to be lower cost, easier to use, and have more of the base features such as HA and DR baked in. Some more advanced mistakes that folks make is choosing the wrong server size. You want to drive it like you stole it. You want to drive your CPU very, very high, very, very hard. You're paying for 100% of the resources on the machine, so you should be using 100% of those resources. Monitor the usage and scale up or down accordingly. If you got a large and you're only using 20% of the CPU, consider getting a smaller machine and making higher use of its CPU. There's a Netflix project called Asgard on GitHub, which can help with this. Using the wrong disk is also something that's going to come and bite you. Make sure that you understand and use EBS versus ephemeral, and you use each correctly. And manually provisioning, again, is going to be a bad idea. If you have 5 or 10 servers, it's not a big deal. But once you get up to hundreds, you're going to want to use something like Chef, Puppet, CFN Engine, or at the very least CloudFormation to provision new servers. And choosing the wrong pricing model could get very expensive as well. You're going to see that depending on your usage, you can sometimes get up to a 70% discount by choosing a long-term reservation versus an on-demand instance. We have a whole deck on that and recommend reviewing that as well.